Raise some
Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Welcome back to the Raising Cain Show, and we are doing a special edition show on a Monday, which we don't usually do, but with the way that the media kind of burns through the news, I felt that there was an important situation that we needed to talk about. And so I have brought back to the show here a real American hero, Sheriff Richard Mack, a constitutional champion who knows the power of law, liberty, and local authority. We're going to talk about a bold move by Trump's FBI, which has arrested Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan, a sitting judge over an immigration case. This proves that no corrupt official is safe when patriots stand watch. Sheriff Mack has fought tyranny his entire life, from winning at the Supreme Court to founding the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. Tonight, he's going to share why this arrest is a major victory for America and why cleaning out corruption is the first step towards restoring our republic. Sheriff Mack, thank you for joining the show again.
Well, it's great to be back with you, Nate, and I never take that for granted, and I thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to see a shift in the FBI, especially me as a former FBI whistleblower. And what I blew the whistle on was the FBI obstructing justice. And now we're seeing a shift with the new leadership in the Bureau. And I'm really happy to see that, and as well as in the Justice Department. Let's talk about this. So how important is it for American people to see corrupt judges being held accountable?
Well, I wish it was corrupt politicians and corrupt judges, but a lot of these judges have placed themselves as politicians instead of judges. They're adhering to political dogma and political agenda instead of doing their jobs. And what bothers me is that every single official in all three branches of government, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch, they all swear the same oath. And so what does that mean? It means that individual liberty is first. The liberty and the civil rights of the people are paramount in this constitutional republic. And the judges have decided, many judges, and this goes, I could start naming names of judges and situations where judges have simply been so unfair and cruel and having nothing to do with the law, but going along with attacking people such as Tina Peters, who was given 9 years in prison. And now a former sheriff from Culpeper County, Virginia, just got convicted last November with the Biden FBI arresting him supposedly for this trumped up bribery charge. And now he's been sentenced and he's due to report at the end of next month and spend 10 years. So Tina got 9, this guy got 10. And both of those cases, even if they did what they said that they did, this would be normally. I mean, I've been to every major court in this country. I've been to every type of court in this country, including tax court, where I testified as a witness when I was sheriff. I've seen it all. And this is absolutely absurd what's going on.
Yeah.
Judges must follow the law.
Yeah. And in the case of Tina
I'm
Peters,
not talking about statutory law. I'm
yeah,
talking about the supreme law of the land. And in any criminal case, there has to be criminal intent,
that's
mens
right.
rea. And there's no criminal intent in all sorts of this. But when you look at a judge who's been hiding and moving a suspect, and she knows that he's wanted, and now these Democrats come to her aid and say, "Oh no, Trump thinks he's a king. He can just arrest anybody he wants." The people that think they're king or God are the judges.
That's
They don't
right.
think they have to answer for anything. And these corrupt politicians in Washington, D.C. are right there next to them. And this is what I've implored sheriffs for the last 10 years, is that go after the real criminals, the politicians, the IRS agents, the FBI agents, the president of the United States, especially this last 4 years. Whatever happened to the investigation against him and his family?
Absolutely.
Because Hunter got pardoned? No, you could still go on with the investigation.
That's right.
He might not be arrestable, but he's definitely can be called as a witness. So
Without a doubt.
I've had it with these corrupt politicians, these traitors, the treason that they've committed in Washington, D.C. And I have said this probably for the last 20 years or more. If God doesn't strike down Washington, D.C., he owes Sodom and Gomorrah an apology.
That's a very good point. It is, without any doubt, we have been living in a two-tiered system of justice for the last 4 years. I would argue, really, during Obama and even during Trump, during his first term, he never had control over the FBI.
No.
And that was the problem. He had traitors in him, amongst his midst that were running spy operations against him, a sitting president.
Yeah.
How
about the impeachment of Donald Trump after he was out of office?
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a good one.
Yeah. It's just absolutely absurd. And to me, one of the most disgusting, stomach-turning news stories that I forced myself to watch was an interview with Andrew Weissman, basically defending Judge Dugan and condemning the Trump administration for arresting her. She committed obstruction of justice. And there's some interesting facts about her that I want to bring up, because I did a little bit of research to find out, these judges in Wisconsin are supposed to be nonpartisan judges. But here's what I was able to find out about her that I thought was kind of interesting. So she is not only a part of several organizations that I would argue a judge probably should not be a part of, especially if they are dealing with immigration cases. But some of those organizations that she's a part of are several left-wing organizations. And I'll argue, since a judge in Wisconsin is a nonpartisan position, they probably should not be a part of, those types of organizations. But the other thing that's really disturbing, and this one really caught my attention, it says here that she led a local chapter of Catholic Charities where she prioritized measuring decisions against social justice principles, a statement that reflects, I think, her bias as a judge on matters concerning immigration. She should have recused it. First of all, I'm not sure if I don't know if she's an immigration judge or if she is some other type of judge, but whatever the case is, on any immigration case, she shouldn't be involved in it, because Catholic Charities has been directly involved in allegations of being involved with illegally helping and assisting illegal aliens to lie on their statements when coming across the border, so that they can, basically fill out paperwork and get shifted into the United States claiming asylum, even though they're not eligible for asylum.
Yeah.
And in this case, this guy who was arrested and who was supposed to be deported, and ICE was coming to basically pick up, this guy had already been deported from our country once, came back illegally, had been convicted of strangling a person, and had also been involved in domestic violence against a woman. What justification could there be for allowing for trying to protect somebody like that? First of all,
What? And I thought her name was Dugan. Is it Dugan?
Dugan. I don't know if it's pronounced Dugan or Dugan, but
I've heard both. But
yeah.
Regardless, it's absolutely astonishing that she could put herself in this position. And if she belongs to some of those groups, especially the Catholic Charities or whatever else other group she's part of, and it shows an obvious bias or potential for one. But these judges that are so corrupt, they don't recognize the morality of recusing themselves.
Yeah.
And she's going to make her job as a judge part of her activism. And this is where she's really made the mistake. And she should know, first of all, she knows better. She knows that this was illegal, what she was doing. You wouldn't have to read her Miranda warning rights.
Yeah.
Because they would take judicial notice that in her job, just like with a cop, you don't need to read an arrested cop his Miranda warning because he does it for a living. He knows what his rights are. And so they're just making sure when that came out with the Miranda decision, it was people who were out of the system and who were lay people who the judges said they have to know what their rights are before they're interrogated. Okay. So yeah. But she doesn't need that. And for her to do this, to me, is really astonishing, even for a liberal, but she's not ignorant. She's liberal, but she's not ignorant. And this is why, to me, this case is so powerful and so meaningful, is that now we're doing away with the Democrat two-tier system of justice, and we're going after everybody who breaks the law. And Democrats should be approving that, and they should want that just as much as the Republicans. I want justice. I want it equal for everyone in this country. And if judges and politicians can get away with everything, like Nancy Pelosi becoming a multimillionaire because she has insider information and she trades accordingly. And then if they try to confront her, she just tells them, shut up. What's your point? I don't get what you're trying to say. And what a liar. I mean, all of this is so dishonest and contrived that it just takes me back to my saying, Washington, D.C. is the most corrupt place on the planet.
Yeah. Well, and apparently Wisconsin's not much better. So,
no, and people will say, "Oh, Wisconsin's the most corrupt place." I've heard it a lot. Utah's the most corrupt government right now. And in fact, the governor there right now shouldn't even be in office, but he cheated to get reelected, and everybody knows it. The press,
rampant.
Everybody.
I think it's rampant everywhere.
Yeah,
and until public officials start getting arrested, nothing will change.
Yes,
we've seen this time and time again. The last time that there were any major number of federal impeachments of judges or impeachments of federal judges was under Ronald Reagan's leadership. And they impeached several federal judges. Now, granted, they were over like bribery and things like that. But I guarantee you that's going on. In fact, during the 2020 election integrity work that I was doing, a former federal appellate judge in Michigan had reached out to me because he had heard I was working on this investigation and asked if I needed any advice. And so I ran by an argument that we were making related to void ab initio, which basically we were making the argument that because the election systems that were used in that state, we had evidence. In fact, the evidence was very strong because they had to overturn an election at a local level when they found that the error rate was so bad. And that error rate's got very, very detailed limits within the law, under federal law. And bottom line is that these systems did not meet the certification standards. And so we were making the argument of void ab initio. And this judge told me, says, that's actually the best case I've heard yet, because every judge in the land understands this. And he says, and the way you need to bring it up is that it's just like if somebody comes into court accused of drunk driving, the arresting officer's got to bring with them certification that the breathalyzer was certified and was within the requirements of the law. Otherwise, you got to throw out the whole case. Well, the same is true with elections. So this kind of corruption's been going on for a long time. But what blew my mind, and the reason I bring this up, is that this judge told me that he was aware of where the case was brought, and it was brought in a Detroit court, and he named the judge and told me, I know that judge, and that judge is bought and paid for. He is corrupt. And I said, what do you mean bought and paid for? Are you being hyperbolic, or do you literally believe that this person is being bribed? And he says, oh, he is absolutely being bribed. So this kind of stuff is going on, and there are judges that know about it. Mm-hmm. And it is, but yet there's very little justice that we see being done, because for whatever reason, these judges have been able to, they've been able to skate by and get away with things, and nobody has held their feet to the fire. So I say good on Trump for this. I looked up this judge. So Judge Hannah Dugan, she's a Milwaukee County Circuit Court judge, and she specifically serves at a state level trial court. Now, she works on criminal cases, so felonies, misdemeanors, and other criminal matters, civil cases, disputes involving contract, property, personal injury, civil claims, family law, divorce, child custody support cases, probate, juvenile cases. She knows the law. She knows the law very well, and she knows that she's violating the law. She's not an immigration judge. So she was probably dealing with this case. I believe this was involving the domestic violence that was going on.
She was handling his criminal charges in her court. And then she heard or was notified that ICE wanted this man. And that's when she put the wheels in motion to hide him.
Absolutely crazy. Well, it's not the only case going on right now where the Justice Department has stepped in. There's another case that I saw that came up. Let me pull this up real quick here. It was a DOJ. Yeah, there it is. Hold on one second. So the DOJ had also arrested two officials that were involved in tampering evidence. So this is a press release that was released on Friday, and by the Justice Department, announcing two cases involving judicial misconduct and obstruction of law enforcement. So ex-judge of Donna Ana County charged with evidence tampering, and then of course the Milwaukee County Circuit Court judge charged with unlawful obstruction and concealment. Says that the allegations against Judge Dugan and Judge Cano, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, are serious. No one, least of all a judge, should obstruct law enforcement operations. And this is, according to Pam Bondi. She went on to basically talk about what Nancy Ann Cano and Jose Luis Cano, 67, they were arrested yesterday for evidence tampering offenses related to the federal investigation and prosecution against Christian Ortega Lopez, a Venezuelan national residing unlawfully in the United States and with alleged ties to transnational criminal organization Tren de Aragua. which is listed as a designated foreign terrorist organization. I don't know if these judges realize just how dangerous they have put themselves in.
Well, I will tell you, I've been to training about Latin American gangs and international terrorists. And some of these Latin American gangs have done the most heinous, evil, vile, satanic executions of people that they don't like, or competitive competitors within their mafioso activities. And it is something I cannot get out of my mind, this training that I saw and the video clips I saw, and the way they would murder ladies and wives of some of their competitors, and how they would torture them. Believe me, it would be a XXX movie, and it's just horrible. And these people do not care about life. They do not care about you. And your point is well taken. They would, whoever deals with them, they don't care who you are. They don't owe you favors. They don't owe you nothing. And these Democrats and this stupid judge that did this criminal judge, and yeah, the system has to give her the benefit of the doubt, innocent until proven guilty, but I don't, and you don't. Nope. And it's obvious this lady has done something really stupid and criminal. If she wins it in court, I don't know how that would be possible, but it's possible, because sometimes juries do crazy things, and sometimes the judges in these situations do crazy things. So it can happen. But O.J. Simpson was found not guilty, and he was guilty as hell.
Absolutely.
Of murder.
He wrote a book basically confessing it later.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
So, and there was one other judge, and it might have been the one that you were alluding to during the Reagan administration. He was a judge in Pennsylvania, and he was a juvenile court judge.
Yeah.
And he was putting juveniles in lockup because of the money that it was brought in because of that. And then he got a kickback.
Yeah. And that was one of the guys that Biden pardoned.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Crazy.
And so this is just what judges have done in this country. I'm going to even name one. His name was Danny C. Reeves, and he was a federal judge in, I think it was Louisville, Kentucky. I know it was Kentucky. And so it might have been Lexington. Either I don't remember, but I went to it. And the criminal in question was a 55-year-old Amish farmer. And this man has never committed a crime in his life. He's such a good man, but he actually borrowed a phone and called me. Some people told him about me and our organization with working with constitutional sheriffs. He wanted me to come work with his sheriff, and I did. And the sheriff was quite cooperative and was, well, yeah, I need help on this one. And what happened is this guy made this Amish farmer, his name was Sam Gerard, and he made a salve, a lotion, if you will, out of chickweed. Now, I've never heard of chickweed before in my life. Do you know what chickweed is?
I do. I feed it to my chickens.
Oh, okay. There you go.
It's actually really, it's just a weed that grows early spring, and it's actually really good for them.
Yeah, and it's good for people most of the time. In fact, the salve, he gave me some, and I used it all the time. And I interviewed with Ted Nugent about this situation, and he used it for quite a bit. But the point is this: Amish do not believe in pasteurizing their dairy products. They don't believe in that. Some do, some will, but there's about 15 different degrees of Amish. Some will even have cars, and some will even use phones, and very few, but some do, even computers. But the most orthodox Amish does not. And he was pretty strict on all of this. And so they end up arresting him. and they charged him, and he went to court, and he got some advice from somebody that totally blew it for him, and they pissed off the judge. And the judge at the end, when he was being sentenced, said this: I was there in person in the court, so I know that nobody's making this up. The judge said, I'm going to sentence him to 6 years in prison. And I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why. First, the defendant was not remorseful. He showed no remorse for what he had done. Second, he was obstinate. And third, he didn't get permission from the FDA.
Wow.
Now, Nate, I know you don't have as much law experience as I do, but can you tell me anywhere in those 3 which one was a crime?
Nope. And in fact,
being obstinate, is that a crime?
Nope.
Not being
all.
remorseful, is that a crime?
No, it's not.
And not getting permission from the FDA, that's a policy of the FDA, but it's not a crime.
In fact, the FDA, and this is to me, this is one of the things that was recently ruled on by the Supreme Court, is that we've got a problem. All these federal agencies making up rules, they're not part of the judiciary, part of the legislation.
Right.
That the executive doesn't get to create, new law. That's that's our Congress that's supposed to do that. But that's what's been happening.
Article 1, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution says so.
That's
that
right.
All legislative power is vested in a Congress. How much? All. 100%. Right. The president cannot set aside law and cannot make law. And the judicial branch, when it says case law, that's a misnomer.
Yep.
It's a decision in one case at that time. They can establish precedent, but that's the most they can do. Well, and another court doesn't have to follow the precedent.
That's right. And precedent is not always right. I mean,
no, it isn't.
For God's sakes, in this country, we allowed slavery, and you had the Dred Scott decision that basically said that a black man didn't have as much rights as, didn't have the same equal amount of voting. That was the Supreme Court. So clearly, courts can be wrong.
Even a bigger one than that. Plessy versus Ferguson.
Yes.
Where the court stayed with segregation and this idiotic notion that separate but equal.
That's right.
Separate but equal doctrine. And this was the U.S. Supreme Court. And we put up with that for almost 60 years before the Board of Education changed it. Or a Board of Who was it? Brown versus Board of Education.
Brown versus Board of Education.
And that's ridiculous. And they actually said this. It's okay to be segregated as long as you get equal stuff.
Yeah.
In the schools. And that's how stupid the courts have been. And probably the worst decision of all was saying that it's okay for a woman to kill a baby in her womb. Yep. And these are all done by people who know, are supposed to know and uphold the law, not their opinions and not political opinions or partisanship. So the law.
What you're describing happened in that court is exactly what happened to Tina Peters.
Oh, I was there too.
She didn't do anything wrong.
She
did her job, in fact. And then the judge basically gave her maximum punishment because she was obstinate, because she refused to be remorseful for doing her job and her duty, which she had sworn an oath to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
And even if she was wrong, even if there was no real evidence, let's just say she was wrong, all she did was preserve the vote tallies. That's
right. Which is actually required under the law.
And who?
The Civil Rights Act requires everything. It says in the Civil Rights Act, federal law, it says every record pertinent to voting in a federal election is required to be maintained for 2 years.
And that ignorant, arrogant, I'll stay with that. That ignorant, arrogant judge took it upon himself to chew her out, to scold her for 20 minutes afterwards, and while he was sentencing her, right after he sentenced her, he chewed her out for 20 minutes. If I was her, or if I were her or her lawyer, say, Your Honor, we've heard the crap already throughout this entire fiasco of a court, and we're not going to listen to any more of this. And I was about ready to come out of my chair and tell him that myself. He was very immature, and he was really a baby in the courtroom. He accused people of doing outbursts, and I'm sitting 2 rows behind these people, and I did not hear a thing. And he was so stupid and ran a courtroom. And he wouldn't let me wear my cowboy hat in there, like it's some sacred place or something. Like, I can't wear a cowboy hat. What is this going to desecrate the place or something? What? No. Anyway, I thought he was very immature. He didn't know what he was doing. He was dozing off a couple of times, and he says, "These outbursts are making it to where I can't even concentrate on what's going on." He already had his mind made up anyway.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter, and the jury instructions were horrible, and the whole thing.
We've got some activity in the comments, and I want to take a moment real quick to respond to a question here.
Oh,
that,
sure.
Was being put forward by Kevin Jones. He said that he lives in Kansas City, Missouri, and he's been trying since January to get anyone to come and get the illegals next door to him. And the cops, they're just laugh at him. And he's called the hotline and been to the website, and he's had nobody reach out to him.
Wow.
What can people do when they run into these types of situations? I mean, I would argue that, look, it's a different world than it used to be. I would say this is an appropriate time to call the FBI.
I think I have a pretty good response for him.
Okay.
One is they've got a list of the people that they're going after first that is not simply because they're here illegally. And that's what they're focusing on. And they've got a huge list. They've already done about 130,000 of those. And so if that's his only suspicion that they're here illegally, they're going to be put down on the bottom of the list.
That's true.
However,
that's a good point, because actually what's going on with a lot of these guys, how many, I can't even fathom how many millions of illegal aliens are in our country. But you're right. They are focused on trying to go after the ones that are a threat to public safety first.
Right. If they say there's 11, then there's more like 30 to 40.
Yeah.
If they say 11 million, then it's 3 or 4 or 5 times that.
Yep. Now I'll tell you, years ago, I was living in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, and we had problems with gang members that were selling drugs out of an apartment complex that was down the street from my house. Mm-hmm. And I got sick and tired of it, and I kept calling the cops. The cops would come, they'd make an arrest, the guy would get out of jail, go right back to selling drugs again. Or the guy would go to jail and somebody else would move in and start selling drugs, because we had slumlords in our town. I decided that I was sick and tired of it. And so I ran for city council, got elected, and worked on trying to institute a bill that we had seen happen in California, in Pomona, California, pretty successfully, which basically, if the cops had to go out to a rental property so many times within so many, within a period of a few months, I don't remember the exact thing about it, but they could condemn the property, as a nuisance property, and basically take possession of it away from the owner of it. And that went all the way up to the California Supreme Court and was held up. Wow. And so I think that there are other things that can be done, but it may require you getting active in your local city council and maybe even running for city council.
Well, there, and that's fantastic. I'm really glad you did that. And that's part of the solution, obviously. And we believe that sheriffs enforcing the law, the supreme law, the Constitution, that is a huge, peaceful, and effective solution.
Absolutely.
And the people in this country that have a county sheriff that is dedicated to his oath of office and the Constitution, isn't that amazing? That all the sheriff has to do is what he promised to do when he took his oath.
Yep.
But so many of them fight that. But no, it's so powerful to know that you can trust someone in your county, someone that you can turn to for peace, safety, and protection and liberty when government becomes venal and oppressive. And this is part of our God-given constitutional republic, that we have that kind of leader within our own communities. And it's vital that we have that, folks. But I will tell you this, for the man you're talking about, or the caller or the questioner, if he can get more information that they're not just here illegally and trying to seek asylum, whatever, if he can get any more information that there are some harder criminals in there, if he'll get you the address and you get it to me, I'll get it to Tom Homan.
You got it. Well, you heard that. And so, Kevin, you can reach out to me through social media, or you can go to the website, theRaisingCainShow.com. There's an email on there, and you can send that information, and we'll pass it up and try to get it out to Tom Homan. But it's got to be more than just, these people are here illegally. If you see that they're doing something that is that is causing a public safety issue, I think that's where, we can push on this and try to get somebody to act. Yeah. The other thing I want to ask you about, and this thing that you started to allude to, but I want to give you an opportunity to explain to people about the importance of constitutional authority as the highest authority in the land. I don't think a lot of people fully understand that, and how that aligns, or how this arrest aligns with returning to constitutional justice.
Well, it does. And at every level of government, we need to do that. And that's why, again, the sheriff is so important. The sheriff is the supreme law authority in his county. There's no one above him. And what's remarkable and unique about that is the sheriff is the only elected law enforcement official anywhere in the country, anywhere in his county, anywhere in his state. Regrettably, there's 3 states without sheriffs, and Alaska and Hawaii never formed the office when they came into the Union in 1959. And then crazy Connecticut, and I mean insane Connecticut, voted the office out in about 30 years ago, maybe 31, 32 years ago. And so they only have the state police, or the police state, I should say. Yeah. And there are no elected law enforcement officers in that state. And the key component there is the state literally stole that stewardship from the people. And now there's other states that are trying to do that. And King County, Washington did it. They now appoint the sheriff instead of electing the sheriff, thinking that would be so much easier. Well, that's how stupid government officials are. That's how corrupt they are, that they don't understand the admonition from Abraham Lincoln in the Gettysburg Address, when he said that government by the people, for the people, and of the people shall not perish from the earth. Well, that's exactly what they allowed to happen. They actually facilitated and forced that to happen. That they got rid of the stewardship that belongs to we the people, the first 3 words of the Constitution. This experiment in self-government started with the founding fathers and said, we're going to devise a constitution that will guarantee that the people are in charge and the people make the decisions, not government officials. And the King County, Washington, the greater Olympia area, have destroyed that.
Yep.
And so we've got to get back to that. And in fact, the solution, folks, for all of this that we've been talking about tonight, the solution for America is not, if we can just move forward and create a new plan and create a new program and have more politics. Just the opposite. The solution is behind us. It's at Independence Hall. It's the founding fathers and our Constitution. If we return to those basic fundamental principles, we will win this. We will take back our country, and we will restore peace and get rid of the hate, get rid of the divisiveness, and get people seriously working with each other and saying, what is the best we can do for our country and for the people that we serve? We are public servants. We are not the boss. The boss elects us every 2 years, every 4 years, every 6 years, depending on what the position is. And we have got to get back to that, people, and we have got to demand it. We are the ultimate say. And the sheriff is so powerful because he reports to the people.
Yep. I want to go back to this Department of Justice announcement, because there's more information in here that's just really, it's like unbelievable. I mean, Judge Dugan is one thing, but this other case involving
she's one thing, all right. She's
looks like this judge.
She's really something,
right? It says here, according to court documents, Homeland Security investigations initiated the investigation into Ortega Lopez. This was a criminal alien involved in a different case. And after receiving an anonymous tip that the individual was unlawfully present in the United States and in possession of firearms. So there you go. I'm not telling you to lie, but
Biden said they could have guns. Biden said the illegals could have guns.
Yeah, no, if they're here illegally, that means they're felons, and they're not supposed to be buying guns. But this guy was in possession of firearms, and there were pictures of him and a bunch of his gang member buddies at a range with 6-hour handguns and AR-15 equipped rifles, equipped with a suppressor, which is also that's another problematic thing. Because I have a suppressor and I know what a pain in the butt it was to get all the paperwork for that. So the fact that an illegal alien had one, that's pretty interesting. He had distinctive tattoos that confirm his identity and also his affiliation with Tren de Aragua. And the crazy thing is this judge, Jose Cano, who it looks like him and his wife basically were working to hide these people at their home.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just insane. And so they're looking at potentially 20 years in prison for tampering with evidence. And also, and that's it looks like they could face a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison, at 3 years of supervised release, and up to $250,000 fine. Ironically, the guy Ortega Lopez, the illegal alien that had the guns, the maximum penalty for him is 15 years. So they're helping out this illegal criminal alien. They may do more time than he does, and I say good. They should, because they're in a position of authority and they're in a position of trust. And when people violate that, I think that the consequences should be severe.
Yeah, and I think the consequences should be very severe for public officials and these judges.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in using any one person as an example what will happen to other people. It should be what they did, and that's it. Yeah. But there should be no leniency for these corrupt public officials and judges. Absolutely none. No plea bargains. Yeah.
Now, in the case of Judge Dugan, it looks like what she did was, upon learning of these agents' presence in the hallway at the court, she basically confronted and ordered federal agents to leave the courthouse. So she tried to demand that they had to leave. And then, after being made aware of valid immigration arrest warrant, she told the agents that they needed a judicial warrant and demanded that they go to the chief judge's office, the chief judge's office. So once the agents were no longer in the vicinity of the courtroom, her telling them that probably, wasn't a violation, and, but what she did next was she basically, once they were no longer there, she brought them into her chambers and basically snuck them out through a jury door, a restricted jury door, and helped them to evade. I mean, this
and
is
then, of
just,
course, that's Trump's fault for being king and thinking he can arrest a judge. Well, they sure went after the president of the United States, So what difference does it make?
And the crazy thing is, they still caught the guy. He was arrested, caught in a foot pursuit outside the courthouse. So what an idiot. I mean, she basically is just thrown away her career, thrown away her freedom.
Right.
She could get the maximum penalty of 5 years in prison for concealing a person to prevent arrest.
Right.
And I think she should.
Well, and then look at all the people part of the Biden administration that not just facilitated, but literally participated in bringing illegals to this country.
Yeah.
And they knew that gang members and terrorists were coming into our country. They knew it. And yet they kept us going anyway. They knew the threat that these people were to all of us.
Yeah. And
they did not care. It wasn't part of their agenda to stop and be concerned about the rape, about the victims who had been raped or murdered. And if the people of this country buy into this democratic bullcrap, shame on every one of them. Let's stop the partisan politics. We, the people, have got to stop that and look at the rule of law and look at what better serves us as a peaceful nation.
Yeah.
And just go from there. I don't like partisan politics from Republicans either. I don't. And this uniparty stuff that comes up means the Republicans, especially the rhinos and the Democrats, join forces. And that's one of the reasons we still have funding of abortion, because that happened the last time they voted seriously to defund Planned Parenthood, which is, to me, the number one concern for this country.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Well, I want to ask you a couple of other things too. So right now on this immigration fight and what's happening, I don't know if you saw, but there was an interview that Secretary of State Rubio gave, and it's just unbelievable what the media was doing. And I love what he has been doing to the media. I mean, he just calls them out on their lies right to their face.
Yeah.
In this interview that he was giving, they were asking him about, about immigration officials basically, arresting or detaining children and basically they were acting as if we were taking American citizens, children that were, born here and getting their citizenship through birthright. And they were saying that these children weren't given due process, before being, sent to another country. And he goes, well, hold on a minute. He goes, if I decided to not allow a mother to take her children, minor children, with her, then you would be accusing me of kidnapping.
Right.
So, but he made the point that, look, they have to leave. And if the mother wants to make arrangements for an American citizen here in the United States that might be a family member to take the child, they can, or the children can come back when they're adults. But you cannot, you can't say that we're deporting American citizens that are minors. No, they went with their mother. Now, this does pose a problem, because I've heard what I believe are very good arguments that, and I think it's a problem we've got to solve, which is that this concept of birthright citizenship. Yes, there is birthright citizenship, but according to the Constitution, it only applies to those who are within the jurisdiction and who have submitted themselves to the jurisdiction of the United States. And the example that I've heard that it makes perfect sense to me is that if a foreign diplomat comes to the United States and they have a child born to them here in the United States, and they don't have, one of the parents is not an American citizen, their child does not get citizenship, because they are not here under the jurisdiction of the United States. They're here under the jurisdiction of their diplomatic immunity and with their own country. In the same respect, somebody coming here illegally, they violated the law to cross that border illegally. They are not here legally under the jurisdiction of the United States. Now, it might be a different story for somebody who's here on a green card. They are legally here.
Correct.
And if they have a child, yes, their child, would be a citizen. But the argument that I've heard by some very good constitutional lawyers is that this whole nonsense of anchor babies is completely ridiculous.
No,
they don't have citizenship. Now, I don't think there's a way to fix that in the past, because unless we have some way of verifying that one parent is a citizen of the United States at the time that birth certificate is certified, I don't know how we enforce that. Right. But I do see that as a problem. I don't know if you remember, but years ago you had Chinese women who were getting pregnant and flying here just to have their babies here in the United States so that their children would have American citizenship.
Yeah, there's been a lot of manipulation of that. I don't think that's what the intent of the Constitution was, the 14th Amendment. Yeah. I don't think that's what the intent was. And just because you're born here, you're on vacation. Look, if I'm on vacation in Spain and my wife has a baby there, does that make us Spaniards, citizens of Spain? No, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. Yeah. And so, yeah. So I think we have time for one more question.
All right, let me look here and see. So I think I don't see any other questions in here other than, looks like there might be a question here from Darren Brooks for me specifically. Okay. So I'll reach out to you, Darren. Reach out to me through through my social media, through Facebook, because I see you're on Facebook, and just send me a message and we'll connect. But Sheriff, I want to thank you for coming on, and this has been a good conversation. I think it was important that we need to have, and I didn't want to wait. I thank you for coming on kind of short notice. My concern was if we wait until the weekend, by then it'll be all new news, and that
right.
So
yeah, that was I was going to suggest that too. So yes, absolutely, and and I think that there's still a few questions we want to ask President Trump. What happened to the audit of the gold in Fort Knox? What happened to the case against the Bidens? And why are we not getting Planned Parenthood off of taxpayer funding?
Yeah, and where's the Epstein list?
Yeah. So
what is going on, man? It's been over 5 years. You're gonna tell me that in 5 years they couldn't figure this thing out?
Right. So anyway, I do appreciate what Trump is doing. Yeah, he's making our country safe. As far as doing what he promised to do in his campaign, I give him an A+. And so what I would say, though, in the end, it's obvious after what we've been discussing tonight, we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we do.
And the sheriffs need to be involved in this. And we take back America county by county. And that's how we should be helping with deportation as well.
Absolutely.
And the sheriff does not need to ask permission from anyone. And we're fighting the state of Washington right now because they're trying to destroy the office of sheriff throughout the entire state. And the sheriffs who disobeyed and stood against COVID-19 mandates and are trying to help with deportation, they're going after them. And the attorney general suing them. I'm surprised
Wow.
he didn't try to arrest him. But that's how stupid this has gotten, folks. And so this is why we're telling you, go to cspoa.org, cspoa.org, become a member, make a donation, and help us help you. It's a partnership between you and your sheriffs and the Constitution. So
Absolutely.
thanks for having me, Nate. And it's really good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, likewise. Sheriff, what do you want people to take away from this conversation? We talked about a lot of
there's still legitimate hope. There's really hope, and there's a lot of work to do.
Yes,
we have to we can't get complacent. We've got to keep our sheriffs getting educated and having their sheriffs help to keep our country safe.
So if I understand a few things and I stick in that arena, I'll do okay. And if I don't understand something, but I get all excited about it.
That was weird. My phone went off on its own.
Oh, okay.
All right. Hey, one last thing that I want to say, and I always like to pray and close out my show in prayer. I recognize, I know you recognize this too, that we have to do our part, but we also need help from God. There's no doubt about it.
Amen.
So I'm just going to go ahead and do that and just close this out. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you so much for what Sheriff Mack is doing, the hard work that he is putting into trying to change our country and get us back to constitutional order. Lord, I pray for President Trump. I pray for Tom Homan. I pray for Cash and for Pam Bondi and for all of our leadership that is trying to make a difference, that's trying to change the corrupt system that we have been given by the previous administration. Lord, I pray that you would give success, Lord, to Trump and his agenda and to the American people ultimately to restore constitutional order in our country. I also pray, Lord, that you would raise up awareness with our sheriffs all across the land to participate and to get involved and to recognize the authority that they have under the Constitution and as well as under their state constitutions. And I pray that you would bring back law and order in our country. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Well, folks, I want to thank you for joining us on short notice tonight. Please like and subscribe to the channel. You can find us on the Patriots Prayer Network on Rumble if you search for the Raising Cain Show. But we're also on the Raising Cain Show on YouTube. And I'm also, this is being broadcast on X and Facebook as well. And we also have the Foxhole. And, I have not been able to bring the chat from the Foxhole in. And unfortunately, when I run that, it ends up degrading the video quality. So if you guys are following us over in the Foxhole or on pill.net, please do join us, for the show. If you want to get into, the conversation, make sure and join us in the comments, either on Rumble or on X or Facebook or YouTube. That's the best way. But I want to thank you guys again. Stay safe, stay engaged, and God bless.
Raise some Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.